Today we are going to talk about something that goes far beyond art history. This is a story of one of the most powerful rulers in the history of Russia. A moment of rage that lasted seconds and the consequences that lasted decades. And the one painter who had the courage to put it on canvas is Repin. Hi everyone, my name is Dinara and I opened this channel to talk about works of well-known, less known and even forgotten artists. And most importantly, I love art and I want you to love it too. In today's episode, I want to talk about the painting called Ivan the Terrible. This painting does not only include the story of the painter himself, but also history of one of the most powerful empire of that time. Let's take a moment and have a look at the painting together. The painting is enormous, nearly 2 meters tall, dark, heavy, overwhelming in person. The setting is a room. A blood carpet dominates the floor. A chair is overturned. The rug is bunched up. Everything around them tells you something violent just happened here. There are two figures, a father and a son. The father, Ivan IV, is kneeling on the floor, hunched over, clutching his son's body. He's dressed in a dark black coat. His eyes are wide open, bulging with horror and despair. One hand presses desperately against his son's bleeding temple, trying to stop the blood, like a man who knows it is too late but cannot stop trying. The son, Tsarevich Ivan, is lying across his father's lap, pale, limp, fading. He wears a pink satin dressing gown and a teal green boots, almost delicate compared to his father's severe black. A single tear runs down his cheek. His hand is raised slightly, almost like a wave, almost like forgiveness. And on the floor in front of them, the scepter, the weapon, just lying there, nobody is touching it anymore. The light falls directly on their two faces. Everything is shadow, just the father and his dying son look together in the dark. This is not the moment of the blow. Repin did not paint the violence itself. He painted what comes after. But to understand why this painting exists and why it caused so much scandal, we need to go back. To understand this painting, we need to understand two stories: the man who painted it and the man who portrays it. Ilya Repin was born in 1844 in a small town called Chuguyev, in what is today Ukraine, then part of the Russian Empire. He came from a poor family. His father was a military settler who later sold horses. He started painting icons at 16, religious paintings for churches. At 19, he moved to St. Petersburg to study at the Imperial Academy of Fine Arts, the most prestigious art institution in Russia. Within a decade, he was the most celebrated painter in the country. His position in Russian art was compared to Leo Tolstoy's in literature. He belonged to a movement called Predvizhniki, the Wanderers, a group of Russian realist painters who rejected classical academic art and wanted to paint real Russian life, real people, real suffering, real history. He didn't just observe people, he felt them. For Repin, art was not decoration, it was a moral responsibility. And while working on this painting, he had to stop multiple times. He was so disturbed by the violence he was putting on canvas that he simply could not continue. Before moving forward, I want to give you a heads up that we will be tackling here two historical events. One is about Tsar Alexander II, who was assassinated on March 1st, 1881, and the second is about Ivan IV, who was a ruler of Russian Empire between 1547 to 1584. On March 1st, 1881, Tsar Alexander II was assassinated. A revolutionary threw a bomb at his carriage on St. Petersburg Street. The most powerful man in Russia dead, bleeding in the snow. The image shook the entire country. Repin later wrote, "A trail of blood ran through that year. Terrible scenes were in everybody's mind." That same year, he traveled to Spain and watched a bullfight. He was disturbed and fascinated by it. The spectacle of violence, the blood, the crowd watching. He came back to Russia with one obsession: to paint a moment of violence and its consequences. And he found his subject in Russian history. 300 years earlier, a Tsar, his son, and a specter. Ivan IV was the first Tsar of all Russia. He ruled from 1547 to 1584. His name in Russian, Ivan Grozny, means fearsome, awe-inspiring. Not quite terrible in the way we use the word in English, something closer to formidable, dread-inspiring. His reign transformed Russia. The country expanded significantly under him, but it also came at an extraordinary cost. He had a violent temper that grew worse with the age. November 1581. According to historical accounts, the Tsar confronted his pregnant daughter-in-law, Yelena, for wearing immodest clothing. During the argument, he physically struck her, which reportedly caused a miscarriage. Hearing his wife's cries, the Tsarevich, the son of Ivan, intervened to protect her and angrily confronted his father. In a blind fit of rage, Ivan the Terrible struck his son in the head with his iron-tipped scepter, delivering a mortal wound. The Tsar immediately broke down in grief and remorse, unsuccessfully attempting to revive his son. The young Ivan died days later. And what followed was catastrophic. The Tsarevich was the successor to the throne, and with him gone, remaining inheritor was Ivan's younger son Fyodor, described by contemporaries weak-minded and unfit to rule. Fyodor died without children, officially ending Rurik Dynasty. This led directly what Russian historians call the Time of Troubles, a period of political chaos, civil war that lasted for 15 years. In one moment of rage, Ivan IV destroyed his own dynasty. And this is what Repin painted. Not the blow, not the rage, the moment after, when the anger was gone and only the reality remained. Look at Ivan IV's eyes again. That is not the face of a monster, that's the face of a father who just understood what he did. Horror, despair, and a desperate, useless attempt to undo it, pressing his hand against a wound that cannot be stopped. Repin spent 2 years painting this. He later said the process was agonizing. He described being too disturbed by what he was creating that he had to stop multiple times. When it was exhibited in 1885, the reaction was immediate. Tsar Alexander III, whose own father had just been assassinated, banned it from public display. A painting showing a Tsar as a murderer holding his dying son, too dangerous, too uncomfortable. It was the first time in Russian history a painting had been officially banned. 3 months later, the ban was lifted, but the controversy never stopped. The painting has been attacked twice. In 1913, a man entered Tretьякov Gallery in Moscow and slashed the canvas 3 times with a knife, cutting through the faces of Ivan and his son. As he did it, he screamed, "Enough of death, enough of bloodshed." The gallery curator was so devastated he threw himself under a train. Repin, then 68 years old, personally restored the painting himself. In 2018, a man smashed the protective glass with a metal pole, tearing the canvas in 3 places. He claimed the painting was an assault to Ivan IV. He was sentenced 2.5 years in prison. The painting underwent 4 years of restoration. It returned to public view in 2022, now protected in a bulletproof anti-vandal case. You know what I truly take away from this? I don't think Repin was trying to illustrate exact historical events. I believe he went much deeper. In my personal opinion, this is how I see and how I read it. Repin was painting feeling, his own feeling, living through the assassination of Alexander II, watching power collapse, feeling that shock that something so violent, so enormous could happen at that highest level. And instead of painting that exact moment, he went back 300 years and found the moment that carried exactly the same weight, the same shock, the same helplessness, a ruler, a death that cannot be undone, and a blood that could not be stopped. Two completely different moments in history, but that carries the same feeling. And I think that's what makes the painting so hard to forget, because Repin was not documenting the past. He was living the present with someone else's tragedy. That, for me, it makes the great art, and I would love to know your opinion, your takeaway. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you like this episode, and see you next time.